Next, we turn to another installment of our weekly brief but spectacular series. Alan Alda is an award-winning actor, writer-director, and now podcaster. A very clear understanding with the Pentagon, no guns. At 88, Alan Alda finally admits how much he truly hated him. Alan Alda wasn't as perfect as you might believe on MASH. He frequently argued with a co-star he couldn't stand. MASH was a beloved show known for its humor and drama, until it stopped being funny. Why did the show lose its charm? Who did Alan Alda dislike? Was it a cast member or someone from the crew? Get ready to uncover the answers and learn more interesting facts about MASH. Tensions behind the scenes. During the filming of the second season of MASH, a bit of drama unfolded behind the scenes. Alan Alda, the beloved actor who brought Hawkeye Pierce to life, and Jackie Cooper, a director on the show, weren't exactly best buds. It seems like they had different ideas about how things should be done on set. Alan, known for his quick wit and improvisational skills, wanted more creative freedom for the actors. He felt that some of the strict rules and directions from Jackie were stifling their creativity. Alan wanted to explore the characters and bring his own unique touch to Hawkeye, but he felt limited by Jackie's traditional approach to directing. Jackie, on the other hand, was a seasoned pro who had been in the business for a long time. He likely expected the actors to stick to the script and follow his directions closely. This difference in working styles led to some tension between the two, with Alan perhaps pushing back against Jackie's authority. Alan cared deeply about the show's quality and wanted it to be the best it could be, but he felt that Jackie wasn't putting in the same effort or passion, which frustrated him. Jackie, however, had a different perspective. He found Alan to be a bit difficult to work with. Alan was known for being strong-willed and wanting things done his way. He didn't always take other people's suggestions or opinions into account, which could be frustrating for a director like Jackie, who was used to being in charge. Jackie also felt that Alan tried to take control of the scenes, making it hard for him to do his job effectively. It's like when you're building something with Legos and someone keeps taking the pieces you need and telling you how to build it. It's not very fun, right? That's how Jackie probably felt working with Alan. So it seems like their problems stemmed from a clash of personalities and different ideas about how the show should be run. Alan wanted more creative freedom and a more collaborative environment, while Jackie preferred a more traditional approach where he was in charge. Both of them had strong opinions, and they didn't always agree, which led to tension between them. The magic of MASH? Was it just their opposing ideas that made Alan not stand Jackie? Or was it more than that? Before we get into that, how about we get familiar with the show? First, MASH was a famous TV series based on a book. It aired between 1972 to 1983. It was set during the Korean War and followed the lives of the people working at a mobile army surgical hospital, which is where the name comes from. The show was a mix of comedy and drama, and many people loved it. The iconic television show set during the Korean War was much more than just a comedy. It was a story about doctors and nurses working tirelessly to save lives in the face of war's harsh realities. The characters, faced with daily challenges and difficult situations, found ways to keep their spirits up and find humor in even the darkest moments. Hawkeye Pierce was a fan favorite. He was a smart and witty surgeon who always had a joke ready even when things were tough. Hawkeye's best friend trapper John McIntyre, played by Wayne Rogers, was always up for a good time and often joined Hawkeye in his pranks and mischief. But MASH wasn't just about Hawkeye and Trapper. The show had a whole cast of unforgettable characters. Loretta Swit played the stern but compassionate head nurse, Margaret Houlihan, while Jamie Farr brought laughter to the screen as the flamboyant Corporal Maxwell Klinger, always trying to get discharged by dressing in women's clothing. Each character added something special to the show with their unique personalities and quirks. This is what made MASH so special. It was a perfect blend of humor and drama. One minute you'd be laughing at Hawkeye's antics, and the next you'd be shedding a tear for the wounded soldiers or the emotional toll of war. The show wasn't afraid to tackle difficult subjects or explore deep emotions, which is why it resonated with so many people. It's no wonder it's considered one of the most beloved shows of all time, even decades after its final episode aired. Secrets and surprises on set. But here's a fun fact you might not know. McLean Stevenson, who ended up playing the lovable but sometimes bumbling Colonel Henry Blake, originally wanted to play Hawkeye Pierce, the witty and charming surgeon who eventually became Alan Alda's iconic role. Can you imagine McLean Stevenson delivering Hawkeye's sarcastic one-liners? It's certainly an interesting thought experiment. Stevenson's desire to play Hawkeye reveals a common aspect of actors' careers. They often have specific roles they feel drawn to or believe they'd be perfect for. Just like anyone else, actors have their own preferences and ambitions. Sometimes they get their dream roles, and sometimes they don't. But in the case of MASH, it seems like fate had other plans for McLean Stevenson. Believe it or not, some of the actors on MASH had real-life experience in the military before they joined the show. Jamie Farr, who played the lovable and quirky Corporal Klinger, actually served in the United States Army for 2 years. He was stationed in Japan and Korea after the fighting had ended. But his time in the military surely gave him a unique perspective on the lives of soldiers. Alan Alda, the star of the show, also had a military background. He served in the Army Reserves and was stationed in Korea for 6 months. He wasn't directly involved in combat, but his experience likely influenced his portrayal of Hawkeye Pierce, the witty and compassionate surgeon. It wasn't just Jamie Farr who had a taste of military life before MASH. Alan Alda also served in the Army Reserves after graduating from Fordham University. While the specifics of his service aren't common knowledge, his time in the military must have given him a good understanding of how things worked in the Army. Having this experience probably made Alan's portrayal of Hawkeye even more believable. He could draw on his own military knowledge to add a sense of realism to his character and the situations he faced in the show. It's like when you watch a movie about space, and it turns out the director actually worked for NASA. It just makes everything feel more authentic, right? Rivalries and friendships. So who was Alan Alda's real rival on the show? While some folks think it was Jackie Cooper, the director, others believe it was Mike Farrell, who played B.J. Hunnicutt. Why, well, there was definitely a competitive vibe between them on screen. They always tried to outdo each other with jokes and pranks, and they were constantly trying to prove who was the better doctor. Even Alan himself talked about this friendly rivalry in his book Never Have Your Dog Stuffed and Other Things I've Learned. He and Mike would compete in all sorts of silly ways, like trying to see who could learn to stand on their hands first. It was all in good fun, and it made working together even more enjoyable. Interestingly, Alan also mentioned in his book that he learned judo during his time in the Army. This might explain why he was so game for physical challenges and playful competitions with Mike. But even though they were friends, their physical interactions weren't always just playful. Alan noted that whenever he was called to sit down, Farrell would playfully try to trip him from behind and knock him down. However, their relationship wasn't always all fun and games. There were moments when they disagreed, particularly about how their characters should behave. In one episode, Mike felt strongly that his character, B.J. Hunnicutt, was acting out of character. This led to a bit of a disagreement between him and Alan, who might have had a different interpretation of the scene. It's natural for actors to be invested in their characters and want to make sure they're portrayed accurately. This likely fueled the disagreement between Alan and Mike about BJ's behavior. They both wanted what was best for their characters and the show as a whole, even if their opinions sometimes differed. The untold stories of casting beyond. Alan and Mike's disagreements. There are other interesting stories about actors turning down roles in MASH that could have changed their careers. Comedian Robert Klein, for instance, was offered the role of trapper John McIntyre, Hawkeye's partner in crime. Imagine that. Robert Klein, the funny guy known for his stand-up comedy, could have been a part of the iconic MASH cast, but for whatever reason he decided not to take the role. Even though MASH went on to be a huge success, Klein didn't seem to regret his decision. He went on to have an amazing career as a comedian, appearing in over 100 movies and TV shows. It's clear that he found his own path to success, even without the boost of being on a popular show like MASH. Another quirky casting tidbit involves Wayne Rogers, the actor behind the charismatic trapper, John McIntyre. Unlike most actors who sign contracts when they join a TV show, Wayne never did. This meant he could leave the show whenever he wanted without any legal strings attached. Imagine the surprise of the MASH team every time Wayne decided to take off for a bit. It must have been quite the juggling act to keep the show running smoothly, with one of the main characters coming and going as he pleased. Klinger. The flamboyant character played by Jamie Farr was a fan favorite on MASH. But did you know that he wasn't supposed to be a regular on the show? He was only meant to appear in one episode, and originally he was supposed to be gay. However, Klinger's quirky personality and hilarious antics won over the audience, and the producers decided to keep him around. As MASH continued to air, something curious happened. The laughter track, that familiar sound of a studio audience chuckling along, started to fade away. It wasn't a sudden change, but gradually the laughter became less frequent and less prominent. This shift reflected a change in the show's tone and direction as it moved towards a more serious and dramatic approach. In the early days of MASH, the show's creators wanted to do things a bit differently. They thought a laugh track, the recorded laughter you hear in some sitcoms, didn't really fit the tone of the show. They wanted viewers to know that even though MASH was funny, it was also about serious things like war and loss. But CBS, the network that aired the show, didn't agree. They wanted a laugh track, which was pretty common back then. After some back and forth, the producers and CBS reached a compromise. They agreed to keep the laugh track, but they were allowed to film some scenes without it, like the ones in the operating room. This was a small victory for the producers, who wanted to create a more realistic and dramatic atmosphere in those scenes. As the show went on, the laughter became less and less noticeable. It wasn't completely gone, but it was quieter and used less often. This change showed how MASH was growing up and becoming more serious as it tackled deeper themes. It was still funny, but the humor wasn't always as lighthearted as it had been in the beginning. The enduring legacy of MASH. The very first episode of MASH, which aired on September 17, 1972, was a smash hit. It was even nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, one for the director Gene Reynolds and another for the writer Larry Gilbert. What's even more impressive is that Larry wrote the whole episode in just 3 days. That's like writing a whole book report in one night, but way cooler. With all the awards and praise the pilot episode received, it's clear that it was something special. Even though it was written quickly, it still managed to capture the hearts of viewers and become a beloved classic. But here's a secret that the cast didn't know at the time. Alan Alda, who played Hawkeye, was the only one who knew that Colonel Henry Blake was going to die. Imagine being part of the MASH cast and suddenly discovering that a major character was being written off the show without any warning. That's exactly what happened when Colonel Blake was unexpectedly killed off. The other actors weren't told about this twist until the very last minute just before filming the emotional scene. It must have been a shock for everyone, especially since Blake was such a beloved character. But surprise twists weren't the only thing that kept MASH interesting. The show also featured some big-name stars in guest roles. Imagine seeing a young Ron Howard, famous for his roles in Happy Days and American Graffiti, pop up on MASH. Or how about the hilarious Leslie Nielsen from Airplane and The Naked Gun making an appearance? Even Patrick Swayze, the heartthrob from Dirty Dancing, graced the MASH set with his presence. These guest appearances added some extra excitement to the show and helped attract even more viewers. Another surprising thing about MASH is that it lasted a whole lot longer than the actual Korean War. The war only lasted for about 3 years, but the show ran for 11 seasons. That's like watching your favorite movie over and over again, but with new adventures each time. With a whopping 256 episodes, MASH kept fans glued to their screens for over a decade. But did you know that Alan Alda did more than just act on the show? He wore many hats behind the scenes, directing 31 episodes and even co-writing 13 of them. This talented guy wasn't just a pretty face, he was a creative force behind the camera as well. Speaking of behind the scenes, let's talk about Radar's bear. Remember that cute little teddy bear Radar carried around? It was like his trusty sidekick, always there for him during tough times. But after the show ended, nobody knew what happened to the bear. For years, fans wondered about the fate of Radar's beloved teddy bear. It was rumored to be lost for 3 decades, a relic of the show's past. But in a surprising turn of events, the bear resurfaced at an auction. And guess who bought it? None other than Gary Berghoff himself, the actor who played Radar. It must have been a special moment for him to reunite with a cherished part of his character's life. The MASH cast wasn't done with surprises, though. In one of the show's final episodes, the characters buried a time capsule filled with memories and mementos of their time together. They buried it on the set, a secret treasure waiting to be discovered. Months after filming wrapped up, a construction worker stumbled upon the buried time capsule. It must have been a surprise for everyone involved to find the time capsule after so long. It's like a piece of the show's history was revealed, reminding everyone of the memories they made while working on MASH. Loretta Swit, who played the fiery and sometimes prickly Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, was a MASH mainstay. Out of the show's 256 episodes, she appeared in all but 11. That's like being in almost every single game of a baseball season. Not only that, but she also stayed on the show for all 11 seasons, which is a pretty impressive feat. In fact, only 4 cast members were with MASH from start to finish, and Loretta was one of them. It's clear that she loved playing Major Houlihan and being a part of the MASH family. But even though Loretta was a big deal on the show, it's important to remember that all the characters were important. Even though MASH had a core group of beloved characters, some of the smaller roles were just as memorable. In one episode from 1977, the characters were actually named after the California Angels baseball team. It's a fun little detail that shows how much thought and creativity went into every aspect of the show, even the minor characters. But here's where things get juicy. One of the characters in the show was named after a writer's ex-girlfriend. It's like a little inside joke, a secret tribute hidden within the show's storyline. While it's not clear who exactly inspired the character, some folks suspect it was Patty Haven. Whether it was a gesture of affection or a bit of a jab, it's a fascinating tidbit that adds another layer of intrigue to the show's history. As MASH progressed, the actors started to become more involved in the creative process. Sometimes disagreements on set can lead to some interesting tactics. When the actors on MASH started voicing their opinions about the storylines, the creative team decided to take a playful yet challenging approach. They made the cast film scenes wearing heavy winter clothing, even though the weather was scorching hot. This was likely a way for the team to assert their authority and remind the actors who was in charge. But even with these behind-the-scenes challenges, MASH continued to entertain and capture the hearts of viewers. After the show ended, a few spin-offs were created, including one about the beloved character Radar O'Reilly. The spin-off showed Radar returning home after the war, but his life didn't exactly go as planned. He faced heartbreak and loss, eventually becoming a detective. Sadly, this spin-off only aired once, but it's a fascinating glimpse into what could have been for Radar's character. Another character who got a lucky break was Klinger. Initially meant to be a one-time appearance, his quirky personality and cross-dressing antics became so popular that the producers decided to make him a regular on the show. It just goes to show that sometimes the most unexpected characters can become fan favorites. One of the most heartwarming aspects of MASH was the connection between the actors and their characters' families. Mike Farrell, who played B.J. Honeycutt, even named his character's daughter after his own real-life daughter, Erin. It was a sweet tribute, and a way for him to bring a piece of his personal life into the show. Another fun fact is that the photograph of Colonel Potter's wife, Mildred, that you see on his desk wasn't just a prop. It was actually a photo of Harry Morgan's real-life wife. It's a subtle detail that added a touch of authenticity and warmth to Colonel Potter's character. Jackie Cooper, who directed some episodes of MASH, later wrote an autobiography called "Please Don't Shoot My Dog, Mister." In it, he shared his experiences working with Alan Alda and how he felt Alan was always trying to insert liberal ideas into the scripts. Jackie just wanted Alan to stick to his acting and leave the politics out of it. He felt that Alan was overstepping his boundaries and trying to push his own agenda onto the show. During the first 2 seasons when Jackie was directing, he and Alan didn't get along very well. They barely spoke, even though they never openly expressed their dislike for each other. It seems like their creative differences and personal conflicts created a strained working relationship. Despite the behind-the-scenes drama, MASH continued to be a success, and the final episode was a huge event. It was watched by millions of people across America, becoming one of the most watched TV episodes of all time. But did you know that the final episode wasn't actually the last one filmed? Another episode called As Time Goes By was shot after the official finale. It's a little-known fact that adds another layer to the show's history. Even after MASH ended, Loretta Swit, who played Major Houlihan, remained close with her castmates, especially Harry Morgan. It's heartwarming to know that the friendships formed on set lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling.